Hi all. It's always been a great honor to be part of the Scottish Summit. This event is so iconic. It basically starts off our year with new information, knowledge sharing, making new friends. Now, unfortunately, we are virtual this year, but I'm just so grateful to our organizers and our sponsors for still making this event happen at such big scale still. So thank you very much, everyone. I'm hoping you can see all of the icons of our brilliant sponsors over here. I'm always so nervous when it comes to presenting at the Scottish Summit because I believe this is the event that grew a lot of us in the community. My name is Demeny. You can find me on LinkedIn or Twitter. I'm a partner technical architect for Microsoft, and day to day I work with partners who want to integrate their systems, Power Platform or Dynamics 365, with other systems that their customers might have. As we know, a lot of our customers do actually have an ecosystem when we go in and try to create a new product. And sooner or later, it's best if these products are able to talk to each other in a compliant and secure way. Now, I'm going to talk to you about RPA or robotic process automation today because I believe this new product can really change the world. In fact, those of you who know me already know that I love a rainbow pen, but I also love robotic process automation because even though it's a relatively new product, it came to bridge the gap exactly where we needed it most. Robotic process automation is that product from Power Automate that will allow us to mimic any sort of user interaction and automate it in a click-by-click way so that our users have more time for creative work, for example. Now, apart from work, I really love traveling, but of course I cannot travel now. So, other than travel, my biggest passion is food. So, if you are going to follow me on Twitter, you'll see that I mostly share stuff about technology or about food. So just a bit about me here. Today I'm going to tell you a personal story and what inspired this presentation. The technology is actually Power Platform, of course. You'll see a very brief overview of the Power Platform. And then we're going to go into Process Advisor, which is a brand new part of robotic process automation. And it's that bit of it that will allow us to assess how processes need to change. We're going to do a demo and then go into various types of flows, how we can actually build in some intelligence into our flows, and finally, where does robotic process automation bridge the gap? Why is it so important to us? As I mentioned, this is a bit of a personal story. Last year, unfortunately, I had to go to the hospital quite a lot. I'm hoping that you're all safe and healthy, and you weren't in that situation, in the same situation that I was. Well, when I was going to the hospital, I had to go through these really weird loops in order to get an appointment. I had to call a number, and that number would ring on a really, really old phone and that no one would answer to, and it didn't really have an automated message or anything like that. And then a nurse will get all of the missed calls. She'll write them all on a piece of paper and then take them manually to another nurse, who would then take the numbers one by one and call all of the patients. Now, it's not just that's confusing for the patients, but when I saw this process, all I could think was, oh my God, what a wasted resource, especially now when we need the health system so much. Especially now, we are making nurses copy and paste manually phone numbers so that they can call back their patients. Really soon after that, Microsoft acquired a company called Softomotive, and they added a product called Win Automation at the time. And this Win Automation would be capable of doing exactly that: copying and pasting values, looking at legacy applications, and overall making life easier for most people who are doing tedious tasks. Now, as mentioned before, the robotic process automation product is actually part of Power Automate, and Power Automate is that bit of the Power Platform that deals with workflows and automation of all sorts of kinds. We do tend to call this intelligent automation right now, and you'll see in a second that's because we are able to use the AI builder within the Power Automate product, but then also we can connect through all of these other services, making this part of the Power Platform really valuable, because it allows us to make systems talk to each other, communicate with each other, right? So this is why we are gonna dig a bit deeper into Power Automate. Now, in order for Power Automate to support robotic process automation and the AI builder, it obviously needs data. And where will this data live? Well, it's gonna live in Dataverse. It lives in Dataverse because it's super secure, because it allows us to communicate with the rest of the Power Platform ecosystem, such as Power Apps, Power BI, Power Virtual Agents as well. And also it adds a lot of functionality in the back end. So apart from huge security and audit and metadata and so on and so forth, you also have a rich collection of actions that you can that you can add just by using Microsoft Dataverse. There's a lot of functionality in there, and you will see that the moment you try to set up a brand new even trial of Microsoft RPA, you will get a brand new instance of Microsoft Dataverse. So there's no escaping it at this point. Power Automate can automate all sorts of things, and it's got a lot of triggers. At the moment, there are over 400 out of the box triggers that can start a flow. But it's also good to note the fact that Power Automate also can use the AI builder as well as robotic process automation, as I was mentioning before, creating a full-on intelligent automation system. Apart from that, it can use its own over 400 connectors, but also with the use and with the help of professional developers, we can actually now create a lot of custom connectors as well, and that does include some things within the Power Automate for desktop also. So right now I'm seeing more and more collaboration between citizen developers and professional developers, and together we are creating an amazing ecosystem of products that our customers do use more and more and more and more. It's really the place to be right now. Power Automate also integrates seamlessly across all of the Microsoft 365 products. We do integrate this with Power Automate for desktop and RPA as well, but only because our Cloud Flow will be able to, for example, send a Teams message, or use an Excel file, or set a trigger from a SharePoint list, for example. And once we do those activities, we can actually pass them on to our Power Automate for Desktop. So RPA will be aware of what happened in our team's channel. So really everything is connected, with each other. And the big deal that I was trying to reflect a bit earlier is the fact that you can infuse a lot of artificial intelligence with the AI builder, and this artificial intelligence again can travel through all the way to Power Automate for Desktop, because once again these things communicate with each other by using variables, input and output variables that you can actually build within the cloud and then pass on to your Power Automate for Desktop flow. And you'll see how in a second. And you see on this slide just the amount of richness that the AI Builder can give us. The AI Builder has been built by staff at Microsoft. They've put their heads together and found the most common scenarios, the sort of things that we would need day to day. Rarely you would need something else, and if you do, then you can actually use Azure Cognitive Services, and you can still integrate everything within Power Automate and bridge, all sorts of gaps. So very, very, very important still. I'm gonna start by talking about Process Advisor as a part of RPA, because I believe that the most important thing when automating something is actually figuring out what that something is. It is very often in my experience that the way processes used to be figured out would happen normally in a room with like coffee and sandwiches. Remember those? Donuts? Really good. And there'll be like a table and all sorts of people who know the process very, very well, and they've worked there for like 20 years and they have a thing to say, or they've just joined the company and they have a thing to say about how to make this process better, or they are from IT or from the administration side and they're forever annoyed that they need to do something, right, with regards to this process. And there's always someone who actually tries to draw the process on the board, and happy days. This is how we figure out what we should automate in real life, right? Well, also in real life and also in my experience, this isn't as easy as it sounds, because very soon people are starting to get annoyed and they contradict themselves and they run out the room. And in the end, you don't really get to this overall view of the process. This is why I decided to start talking about the introduction of Process Advisor for process mining. I know Microsoft wanted to buy a product to help with this part of robotic process automation, but in the end, they decided to create it themselves. This product is based on Flow again, and it will record our normal process and then do some analytics, right? So you will gain deeper insights on what makes or breaks our process. And this is how we're gonna discover what's the new way to actually work. Maybe we don't have to automate anything. Maybe it's fine as it is. Maybe it needs to be manual. But even if it is manual, even if said process is manual, then some people might find more optimal ways of performing that thing than others. So then we would like to set at least best practices, right? If nothing else. You can find this tool is a preview feature in your Microsoft Flow portal. you will be able to create a brand new process, and you know, go through your tasks. For example, the lady would record the fact that she had to copy my phone number from this little phone onto a piece of paper, right? This is a bit too too paper based, but let's just assume that they would be writing these numbers on in an Excel file, and they will run the number in an Excel file and then send it to another colleague, and so on and so forth. Once they've done that, they can share this process with their colleagues, because maybe another lady doesn't do that. Maybe she waits for the end of the day to do the whole process in one go and copy all of the phone numbers into my Excel spreadsheet, you know, in one go, thus saving time. We will then group these actions into logical way of thinking, like what did we actually perform? And finally, we are going to analyze our results. This is how we're going to really gain some insights with regards to what our process does. This is how, like, this is the visualization that we get in the end. And I'll show you it in a demo as well. You will see what the variants are and how much longer it took, and you will see who is maybe performing the same tasks twice, and so on and so forth. And also you will have deeper analytics that you can just frankly download or share with your management, so that they can decide, you know, what to do next. Is it worth in actually you know, creating a brand new robot? I guess it's probably worth it, because many people will be doing the same you know, manual task, especially now when they have children that need to do homeschooling, or when we have less and less time for ourselves. It's really important that we start automating some stuff. Let me show you exactly what it looks like in Flow. For this, we're gonna do a simple currency converter, and then we're gonna input all of these values in my old application. Cool? Let's get started. So if I go on to Process Advisor, even though I've created my process, I can easily just say, record me a brand new process. And you can see here that whilst it did choose my process, the actual thing that's gonna do is exactly the same as if I would have done a brand new one, right? So it will still open the recorder. Now I want you to pay attention to this, because this is actually our Power Automate for Desktop Recorder, right? This is why I'm saying this particular product is part of Robotic Process Automation, and it will look exactly the same in Robotic Process Automation as well. The Process Advisor only captures steps, doesn't really do anything else, right? It provides you with some analytics with regards to what your process is, and then we'll see in a second how we can improve that process by adding some more RPA, you know, on it. Cool, let's start recording. Once I start recording, you can see that my recorder can do things already. So if I click on email, my recorder knows that I've been there, you know, to click on email. Now, this isn't necessarily a thing that I want to show within my process, because maybe I don't always have these documents in an email. Maybe they're in a folder, it doesn't matter. So if this step isn't important to me, I can just delete it. And I can move on to the next step, which is actually important to me, and that is getting the actual balance, yeah? We want to get the balance, and we're going to copy it, and then we're going to go onto a currency converter, and then we will convert this amount into pounds. Amazing. Now I am going to copy this amount and I am going to open my legacy application. Here it is. Once I have my legacy application, I would want to create a brand new value for it, right? And it will be for the account of Anna. It doesn't matter, right? I would know the account and the contact. The important bit is the amount. Here is the amount. This will be invoiced because I'm sending an invoice, and save. That's my process, right? For example, and I can click on finish here. Once I've clicked on finish, what this will do is actually will save my my full recording. So all of my steps are being saved under the process advisor. And we will be able to see these steps by going onto invoice processing. There we go. So we already have this recording ready for me right here. If I click on it, this is really important because we will have to process our recording. As you have seen, my step-by-step recorder thing can be a bit confusing, right? So I clicked on things, I copy-pasted things, but what is it exactly that I've done? And you'll see in a second how you can define these things. I will just refresh this page to see if my recording is ready. Awesome, my recording seems to be ready. You can see here that I've got a bunch of steps. So in order for me to make sense of what's going on, I would like to add an activity. This is how we call this, right? This is an actual activity. So what did I do here? I copied the value, right? Let's just say copy. I have it already, right? Dollars final balance. Cool. Once I copied this, what did I do? I actually wanted to convert, I wanted to convert this into pounds. This time, when I'm adding the activity, I can choose one of the ones that I have already. So you can see that the one that I've created right now, copy dollar final balance, will be here already. But this time, what I want to do is actually convert dollars to pounds in this case, right? So we are going to do okay. And finally, what did I do? I was able to actually copy these values into my legacy application. Add activity, and for this one I really do have an activity. I won't need to create a new one. Save, record, invoicing contoso, and finally I have saved it. Sorry. And finally I have saved this. Now, really cool thing here. You have seen that as we go from one element to the other, we have a bunch of screenshots. Maybe some of the screenshots we do not want to share with our colleagues. So in this case, we can just delete the screenshot, right? We don't want them to see the actual value. Then, if we are to write anything, for example, then we would be able to mask some of those values as well. For example, the way I'm editing the text box here, and it says that I'm gonna write Anna. I don't want this. I don't want this to show up in here. So what I'm gonna do is I will be able to escape this. So these are some of the way that we can make our process a bit more secure just for us. And you'll see in a second why we need this, right? So I saved this and I would say this is ready to analyze. So I need to make it say this is ready for to analyze, and I'm saving it again. Close. Great. Here's what we're going to do now. We are going to try and analyze this so that you can see what it looks like once the system has analyzed it. So if I click on the Analyze button, you will see that my ready to analyze activity will be analyzed and it will give me a report. What I can do in the meantime is manage this. For example, I can share my process with the other colleagues that are performing the same process, or I can share this process with my boss, or I can make someone a co-owner. For example, if I start writing a process but I want other people to take responsibility of it, I can also do that as well. We can see here that our process has been analyzed, and let's just see what the analytics look like. You'll see here a very simple process, right? I didn't do much. It was sort of like a step-by-step. It wasn't anything too complicated. There weren't many loops. You will see how long my process took. And then we would like to analyze this with some of the processes that I have recorded already for you to see how complex a task like this can be. My analytics is now ready, so you can see here my step-by-step. Everything is color coordinated, right? So it sort of tells me what my activities are. This is why it's really important that we group them right into activities, our clicks and stuff, so that we can understand what's going on a bit better. And then we can see here that it took me like a minute to complete this process, and so on and so forth. Now, to make this more interesting, we are gonna mark some of my previous recordings as ready to analyze, and then we're gonna analyze all of them as to mimic where more people will be working on the same process and will be collaborating towards finding the best way forward. Okay, so I marked 2. You can see that I have to mark them as ready to analyze. Otherwise, the system will not notice them, right? They will not analyze them, which is really good because if we have processes in a state of draft, for example, if we haven't finished something, we do not want to break the rest of the statistics, obviously. Okay, so now we have quite a few to analyze. I'm just going to go back. I'm going to click on Analyze again, confirm. Now this will take a bit longer to analyze because obviously I have more processes. In the meantime, let's just see how we can manage this, right? If I click on Manage, then you will see that I can actually share this with someone else within my organization. Let's just see if I have. If I have other people within my organization, I can give them permissions towards my for my process. This time I only have my colleague Paul, who is also a co-owner, but I can downgrade him to contribute them if I want to. If I decide that, our work here is done, he shouldn't be co-owning this process with me any longer, for example. But obviously you can share this process with all of the other guys in your team. Let's see what the analytics look like this time after we've analyzed some of the other processes. the analytics seems to have finished. We can see here that we've analyzed 5 recordings, all made by one user, just me. We can see here that the average time is actually around 1.88 minutes, so around 2 minutes. And there are 5 variants, 5 ways of doing these things. So if I take 2 minutes every day, and if I have to copy, I don't know, 100 of these values, then all of a sudden it seems pretty massive from an organizational perspective, right? And if we want to see where the pain points are, this is something that we can achieve by looking at our process as well. We can make it pop out so that we can see it a bit better. You can see here all of the variants, and then we can identify where are our users spending longer. Are they spending longer in actually converting the currency, or is it where they are filling in the information in Contoso? Which part is more valuable for us to automate? Maybe it's all of it, maybe it's none of it. Maybe it's just a matter of optimizing the manual process this time. But either way, these reports are invaluable on how we would express where our funding is going, essentially. That's why we would use this process mining tool that I believe is absolutely excellent already. Now that we've seen how valuable it would be for us to see exactly what a process does and what our colleagues are working on, and it's really valuable to see what's the best way to help them. As you've seen, part of our process was actually to copy a value from an invoice, and that is something that a person would have to do all of the time. Now, fortunately, as I mentioned before, we do have the ability to use the AI build within Power Automate, and this does mean that most of our scenarios will be covered by just predefined models, things like reading invoices or forms or evaluating tables, things like that. These are already out of the box for the AI build. In case we don't have anything we need, then we can use our own custom models. We can build our own. All of these does get integrated with Power Automate and eventually with Power Automate for Desktop. So Power Automate for Desktop is the robotic process automation tool by Microsoft that will allow us to integrate with these legacy applications. You've seen it already in the Process Advisor demo. You'll see it in a bit more detail within a Power Automate for Desktop demo right now. All you need to do is that you still have that really cool drag and drop capability that we see all around the Power Platform. We do have error handling, and it can actually automate across a variety of applications as well. If you've tried this when we were talking about the very first version of RPA from Microsoft, and that was UI Flow, that technology was a bit trickier to use. Not the case now. So things have evolved greatly. If you tried this like last year, you better try it now again. You'll be super impressed. Now, all in all, Power Automate for Desktop can do a lot of things. It can integrate with web as well as desktop applications. It can talk via Citrix and NVIDIA environments as well. It does a lot of cloud automation, including, Azure Active Directory or various other things that we might do manually. It can do things like that. It can talk to SQL or to Excel. It can write PowerShell scripts. It can encrypt things. So the Power Automate for Desktop in itself is a really smart tool. So when we talk about intelligent automation, we don't just mean about the power of the AI build. The tool itself that will integrate into legacy applications is really, really powerful as well. So worth taking a screenshot of this slide. We can have repeated tasks. Everything is based on a thing that we call actions. We are able to use variables. So all of the variables that can travel from our cloud flow can be used within our desktop flow and then sent back into the cloud, which is a really big deal because it also goes into error handling capabilities. Not only we're gonna do some debugging within the Power Automate for Desktop, but we can have our normal try-catch finally blocks within the cloud flows as well. And also once we start making these tools communicate and actually integrate at bigger scale, all of a sudden we have all of the possibilities in the world to do things like center of excellence, higher governance, data loss prevention, and so on and so forth. All of the sudden, from that really clumsy way of copying a value and then converting that value from a medical tool, for example, converting that value into dollars or whatever currency it was, and then copying it to a legacy application, I can see a plethora of ways where a user can get those values wrong, or even missing an invoice altogether. All of the sudden we can actually audit all of these things with the help of Power Automate for Desktop, Dataverse, and AI build as well. Everything can be automated. So when we were talking before about saving time and allowing people to work more creatively, that's absolutely the case, but it also goes into the remit of, what's the best thing that we can do for our customers. And actually the best thing that we can do for our customers is to protect their data. And this is how we can actually protect their data really, really well. I'm going to go into a demo so that I can show you how these tools can interact with each other and how to get started. Here we are back into my Power Automate environment. I do have a Power Automate for Desktop as well, and I'll show you it in a second. What we're gonna try and do this time is automate all the entire process that we've seen before. So getting an invoice and processing it. But the actual work that we're gonna do is going to be a bit different because we want to include more products as well. So imagine the process advisor was very similar to this. And I'll tell you what this is. What I want to do is when I do receive an invoice, I want to check the invoice to see how big it is. And if this invoice is higher than a certain amount, I like to seek for approval before I actually invoice it and obviously pay. If I'm an insurance company, for example, this is super important. So yeah, it's gonna save a lot of money and a lot of pain, right? Right. So let's just have a look how we're gonna do this. Within my flow, If you are, I'm hoping you are familiar with Flow. This really, I won't go into too many details. I advise that you have a look at Flow in general if you're not that familiar with cloud flows. This sort of flow can have what we call a trigger, and my trigger is when a new email arrives to my inbox. Power Automate is able to identify some values. For example, you will identify the fact that I am looking for the subject of invoice, and also that I want my email to include attachments. If that is the case, then I will do a bunch of things. For example, for each of my attachment that I get within an email with the subject of invoice, I will try to employ an AI model that is able to read my invoices. And I'll show you the AI model in just a second, right? This AI model is going to be able to scan my invoice and actually get the values out of the invoice. Once I have these values out, what I'd like to do is actually check whether the balance is greater than $2,000. And if it is, I want to seek approval. And for this, I'm going to go into Teams, and I'm going to just simply post a choice of options, right, in a bot in Teams, and someone will approve or not. Well, if they do approve, then what I want to do is run a Power Automate for Desktop Flow. So once they've approved my value, I want to take once they've approved my invoice, I want to take all of those values and chuck them into a legacy application. This is what I'm going to try and do. And for you to see, so as you have seen here, I am able to call or trigger a bunch of things from my Cloudflow. One of them was email, the other one was the AI Builder, the other one was Teams, and now Power Automate for Desktop as well. If you are not familiar with Power Automate in general, I strongly advise that you have a look at these capabilities, because they are really, absolutely amazing. And building a bot might be simpler than you think. Right. Once I am here, I can see that I want to look at my desktop flow called Invoice Registration. So if I look at my desktop flow, this is just a desktop application, right, that I've installed on my machine. And if I have a look at the invoice registration, you can see straight away that I'm doing some things. And these things might be grabbing some values, trying to insert the values, opening up an application, things like that. All of these are actually being shown in the tool. So in the Power Automate for Desktop tool, we can see here the list of values that I'm sending from my Cloudflow, right? And we can see here that we can do a bunch of things. For example, we can have if statements, we can have loops, we can have wait statements. We can even have a smaller flow, a subflow, that will perform one of the actions. And once you have a subflow, you can actually use that in more flows. So that's really, really cool, because it allows us to reuse functionality that we have created just for one flow, right? You can see here, for example, if I click on one of the on any of the values here, for example, we can see here that these sort of text box, this will be a text box, will be able to work with one of my variables, and these variables came from Cloudflows. Now, as I mentioned before, this whole thing runs on Dataverse. So you can in fact communicate using Dataverse. For example, if you had a table within Dataverse and some actions would happen in your Cloudflow, you could send those values within your Cloudflow using your Cloudflow within Dataverse, and then you can grab those values back in your Power Automate for Desktop Flow. So I'm hoping that you can see all of a sudden just how powerful this tool can become in the right hands. You can also do a bit of customization with it. So this tool uses a programming language called Robin, and you can do some customization and add some of your custom activities and things like that. But it's still at the early beginning, so we don't know yet exactly 100% what's supported and what's not. But bear in mind that the possibilities may be endless with robotic process automation in this way, right? Via the Power Platform. I know there are many robotic process automation companies and tools and products out there, but this one seems to encapsulate all of these different technologies. That is just amazing to me. So why not use this, especially if you already have a Flow or Power Apps or Dataverse, right? Okay, let's run this demo. Let's see if it actually works. So I was expecting an email to arrive. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna send an email. With the subject of invoice, and I will try and attach an invoice as well. Once my email has landed, then my flow should start running. But let's have a look at my invoice. So my invoice has this value. It's higher than $2,000. That means that my flow should get alerted. And here's my flow. It's alerted already. And it's asking me whether I want to approve. I do want to approve with the comments of okay and nothing much. Submit. This is the moment in time where my flow will go on and fill in the information here. I'm showing you this window already because once it starts, it's really, really quick. As we can see, it started already and it wants to fill in all of my information for me. And that's it, like super quick, a lot quicker than manual input, obviously. And I guess the only other thing that I wanted to show you as well really quickly would be my AI builder models. So if I go on here, okay, I want to leave this page, that's fine. You can start your own trial for AI builder and play with it for a little bit. So that's actually pretty cool. If we go on to a trained model, you will see what it looks like. So I've got a few values here. I just have a normal invoice, and what this will do is it will try and match these fields with the actual values on my training document here. So if we do a really quick test, hopefully, then that should show you just how quick this tool is as well. Now that I found an invoice, let me show it to you. So we're just going to drag and drop. This will analyze and it's going to be able to identify some of my values. a new, we can see here balance, and this is the confidence score. We can see the invoice number, right? And we can see that it was able to actually identify a full table as well. Once it was able to identify these values, it actually extracts them, and we can use them in our Power Automate flow exactly like we've seen a moment ago. If we are to go back to our slides, thank you so much again for being with me for this presentation and demo. I really hope you found it interesting. Please do tweet, LinkedIn post, or whatever social media you want to use, but do use the hashtag Scottish Summit 2021. It's been a pleasure being with you today, and I'm looking forward for your questions. Thank you very much.